I was standing in my garage looking at 5 pallets of inventory when Sharon Whitmore knocked on my door that Tuesday morning, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the doorframe, like she was trying to summon the devil himself. "Frank Patterson, I need to speak with you immediately," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone that middle-aged HOA board presidents perfect over years of making everyone's life miserable. I wiped the dust off my hands and walked over, already feeling the tension building in my shoulders. Sharon was 53, wore pearl earrings every single day, and had her blonde hair styled in that aggressive bob that screamed, "I want to speak to the manager," from a mile away. "What can I do for you, Sharon?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She held up her tablet like it was evidence in a murder trial. "The HOA board has become aware that you are running a commercial business out of your residence in violation of our community guidelines. We require a complete inventory list of everything stored in your garage within 48 hours. I felt my jaw tighten. I had moved to this neighborhood in Scottsdale, Arizona, 6 months ago specifically, because I needed space for my e-commerce business. I had checked every single regulation before buying the house. My business was completely legal, licensed, and I operated everything according to Arizona state law. Sharon, I am not running a business out of my residence. I operate an online retail company that is registered at a commercial address in Phoenix. My garage is simply being used as supplementary storage space." "That is semantics, Frank," she snapped. "The covenant clearly states that no commercial activity can take place on residential properties. We need that inventory list, or we will be forced to fine you $500 per day until you comply." "You have no legal right to demand my business records," I said, feeling my face flush. "That would be a violation of my privacy and my rights as a business owner." Sharon's eyes narrowed. "This is private property governed by HOA regulations that you agreed to when you purchased your home. You will provide that list, or face the consequences." She turned on her heel and walked away, leaving me standing there absolutely furious. I immediately pulled out my phone and called my lawyer, Marcus Henderson, who had helped me set up the LLC for my business. "Marcus, I have got a situation," I said when he answered. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Marcus's office in downtown Scottsdale, explaining everything that had just happened. Marcus was in his early 40s, sharp as a tack, and had dealt with overzealous HOAs before. "Frank, here is the thing," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "HOAs have a lot of power, but they do not have unlimited power. Your business records are protected under several privacy laws, especially since you are operating as a registered LLC. So they cannot force me to hand over my inventory lists," I asked. "Absolutely not," Marcus said firmly. "Your inventory is proprietary business information. It would be like demanding that a restaurant owner provide recipes or a software company provide source code. The fact that you store some inventory in your personal garage does not give them the right to inspect your commercial business records." "But what about the HOA covenant?" I asked. "Do not they have rules about commercial activity?" Marcus pulled up a document on his computer. "I am looking at the covenant for your neighborhood right now. What it prohibits is operating a business that creates traffic, noise, or disturbance to the community. Storing inventory in your garage does not violate that provision. You are not running a storefront. You are not having customers come to your house, and you are not creating any nuisance." "Sharon seems pretty determined," I said. "She threatened me with $500 daily fines." "Let her try," Marcus said. "If they attempt to fine you for this, we will have grounds for a lawsuit. In fact, If they continue harassing you about your business records, we might have grounds for a claim of interference with business operations." I left Marcus's office feeling better but still anxious. I knew Sharon was not going to let this go easily. She was the type who saw any pushback as a personal challenge. Sure enough, the next morning I found a certified letter in my mailbox. It was from the HOA board, signed by Sharon and two other board members, Jennifer Carlson and Robert Martinez. The letter formally demanded my inventory list within 24 hours and stated that failure to comply would result in immediate fines and potential legal action. I scanned the letter and sent it to Marcus, then called him. "They are escalating," I said. "The letter says they are going to fine me starting tomorrow if I do not provide the inventory list." "Do not provide anything," Marcus said. "I am drafting a response letter right now that will explain exactly why their demand is illegal. I am also going to cite the specific privacy laws that protect your business records." "What laws are we talking about?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Several," Marcus explained. "First, there is the general right to privacy in business records. Your inventory list contains proprietary information about your suppliers, your profit margins, and your business strategy. Second, Arizona has specific laws protecting trade secrets and confidential business information. Third, the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches, which extends to your business documents. And finally, there are federal privacy laws that protect business records from unauthorized disclosure." "So we have solid ground?" I asked. "Rock solid," Marcus confirmed. "I will have this letter delivered to Sharon and the HOA board by this afternoon." I spent the rest of the day working on my business, processing orders, and trying not to think about the impending confrontation. My e-commerce company specialized in outdoor recreational equipment, everything from camping gear to hiking supplies. I had built it from scratch over the past 5 years, and it was finally turning a real profit. The last thing I needed was some power-hungry HOA president trying to destroy what I had worked so hard to build. That evening, as I was closing up my garage, Sharon appeared again. This time she had Jennifer Carlson with her. Jennifer was in her late 40s, dressed like she was heading to a country club, and had the same pinched expression that Sharon wore. "Frank, we received a very hostile letter from your attorney," Sharon said. "We are simply trying to enforce the rules that keep our community beautiful and property values high. By demanding access to my private business records," I shot back. "That has nothing to do with property values." Jennifer stepped forward. "Frank, we have concerns that you might be storing hazardous materials or engaging in activities that could pose a risk to the neighborhood." "I sell camping equipment," I said flatly. "Tents, backpacks, sleeping bags. Nothing hazardous, nothing illegal, nothing that poses any risk to anyone." "Then you should have no problem showing us your inventory," Sharon said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I have every problem with it," I replied. "My business records are confidential, and you have no legal right to demand them. If you fine me illegally, I will sue the HOA for harassment and interference with my business." Sharon's face went red. "You are being extremely uncooperative, Frank. This attitude is not going to serve you well in this community." "Neither is an HOA board that thinks it can violate state and federal privacy laws," I said. "My attorney made everything very clear in his letter. If you continue down this path, you are going to create legal liability for the entire HOA." They left in a huff, but I knew this was far from over. Sharon was the type who would rather burn the whole neighborhood down than admit she was wrong. The next day, I received another letter. This one informed me that I was being fined $500 per day, starting immediately for failure to comply with HOA information requests regarding potential covenant violations. They also scheduled a mandatory hearing before the HOA board for the following week. I called Marcus again. "They are fining me anyway," I said, reading him the letter. "Perfect," Marcus said, which surprised me. "This gives us exactly what we need. They are now creating a paper trail of their illegal actions. Do not pay the fine. Show up to the hearing with me and we will put this to rest." "You think it will be that simple?" I asked. "With Sharon Whitmore?" "Probably not," Marcus admitted. "But we will make our case very clear, and if they persist, we will take them to court." Over the next week, things got increasingly hostile. Sharon started parking her car in front of my house, just watching. Jennifer began sending me passive-aggressive emails about community standards and being a good neighbor. Robert Martinez, the third board member, actually seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation and sent me a private message saying he thought Sharon was overreaching, but he was outvoted on the board. I spent those days gathering documentation. I pulled my business license, my LLC registration papers, my lease for the commercial address in Phoenix where my business was officially registered, and every piece of evidence that showed I was operating completely legally. Marcus prepared a legal brief that was frankly intimidating, citing case law from Arizona and across the country about privacy rights, business records protection, and HOA overreach. The day of the hearing arrived, and I walked into the community center with Marcus at my side. The meeting room was set up like a courtroom, with the three board members sitting at a long table at the front. Sharon was in the middle, naturally, with Jennifer on her right and Robert on her left. About 15 other residents had showed up to watch, curious about the drama. Sharon banged a gavel, which seemed ridiculous for an HOA meeting, and called the hearing to order. "This hearing concerns Frank Patterson of 4427 Desert Sage Drive and his violations of community covenants regarding commercial activity in residential areas." Marcus stood up immediately. "For the record, I am Marcus Henderson, attorney for Mr. Patterson. I would like to state at the outset that Mr. Patterson has not violated any community covenants, and this hearing itself may constitute harassment and interference with his legal business operations." Sharon's face tightened. "Mr. Henderson, you will have an opportunity to speak when it is your turn." "Actually, Mrs. Whitmore, this is my turn," Marcus said calmly. "You have summoned my client to defend himself against accusations that have no legal basis. You have demanded business records that you have no right to access, and you have imposed illegal fines. Before we go any further, I want to make it clear that if this board continues these actions, Mr. Patterson will file a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment, violation of privacy rights, and interference with his business." Jennifer leaned forward. "Mr. Henderson, we simply want to ensure that Mr. Patterson is not operating a warehouse out of his garage in violation of our residential zoning." "Ms. Carlson, residential zoning is determined by the city of Scottsdale, not by an HOA board," Marcus replied. "And Mr. Patterson is in full compliance with all city zoning laws. His business is registered at a commercial address in Phoenix. The fact that he stores some personal property in his garage is irrelevant." "It is not personal property if it is business inventory," Sharon interjected. "Actually, from a legal standpoint, that is incorrect," Marcus said. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick document. "I have prepared a brief that explains exactly why your demands are illegal. May I approach?" Sharon nodded curtly, and Marcus walked up and handed copies to each board member. I watched them flip through the pages, their expressions ranging from confused to concerned. Robert looked particularly uncomfortable. Marcus returned to his seat next to me and continued. What you are holding explains the relevant Arizona state laws regarding business privacy, the federal protections for commercial records, and several case precedents where HOAs were successfully sued for overreaching their authority. The bottom line is simple. Mr. Patterson's business inventory list is proprietary information that is protected by law. You have no more right to demand it than you would have to demand his bank statements or his tax returns. We are not asking for his bank statements, Sharon said defensively. We are asking what is being stored in his garage. And he has told you, camping and outdoor equipment for his legally registered e-commerce business, Marcus said. That should be sufficient. If you have concerns about hazardous materials, the fire marshal can inspect for code compliance. If you have concerns about zoning, the city can review. But you, as an HOA board, do not have the authority to demand detailed business records. Robert cleared his throat. Mr. Henderson, what if we just wanted confirmation that nothing illegal or hazardous is being stored? Could we do a simple visual inspection without requiring detailed inventory lists? Marcus looked at me, and I nodded slightly. Mr. Martinez, that is a more reasonable request, Marcus said. However, any inspection would need to be scheduled at Mr. Patterson's convenience, with proper notice, and without any requirement that he disclose proprietary business information such as quantities, suppliers, or pricing. Sharon looked furious. This is ridiculous. He has clearly violated the spirit of our covenants, and you are hiding behind legal technicalities. Mrs. Whitmore, privacy laws are not legal technicalities, Marcus said firmly. They are fundamental protections for every business owner in America. If you persist in demanding Mr. Patterson's business records, you will be violating those laws. And I promise you, the consequences for the HOA will be severe. Are you threatening us? Jennifer asked, her voice shrill. No, madam, I am informing you of the legal realities, Marcus replied. Mr. Patterson has every right to protect his business information. If you fine him illegally, if you harass him, if you attempt to force him to disclose protected information, then yes, we will pursue legal remedies. That is not a threat. It is a statement of fact. The hearing went on for another 30 minutes, with Sharon trying different angles to justify her demands. She brought up property values, neighborhood aesthetics, and community standards. Marcus calmly shot down each argument with facts and legal citations. The other residents watching seemed increasingly sympathetic to my position, especially as Sharon's arguments became more desperate and less logical. Finally, Robert spoke up again. I move that we table this matter and consult with the HOA's attorney before proceeding further. Second, Jennifer said. Though she looked reluctant, Sharon glared at both of them but had no choice. Fine. This hearing is adjourned pending legal review. As everyone filed out, several neighbors came up to me and quietly expressed their support. One guy, Tom Richardson, who lived 3 houses down, said, "I am glad you are standing up to her. Sharon has been making everyone miserable for years." Over the next few days, I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that the HOA's attorney had basically told Sharon the same thing Marcus had told me. They had no right to my business records, and they were creating legal liability for the association. I felt vindicated, but I also knew Sharon well enough by now to know she would not let it go. 2 weeks passed without incident. I started to relax, thinking maybe Sharon had finally accepted reality. Then I came home one afternoon to find my garage door open and Sharon, Jennifer, and a man I did not recognize standing in my garage with clipboards. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, running up the driveway. Sharon looked startled but quickly recovered her composure. "We are conducting an inspection as authorized by the HOA covenants." "Get out of my garage right now," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You have no authorization to be here. This is trespassing." The man with them, who was wearing a cheap suit, said, "Sir, I am Douglas Fletcher, HOA compliance officer. We have the right to inspect properties for covenant violations." "Not without notice and not without the homeowner present," I said. "And definitely not to rifle through my business inventory. Get out now, or I am calling the police." Sharon's face was bright red. "Frank, you are being completely unreasonable." "I am being unreasonable." I pulled out my phone. "You are literally committing trespassing and possibly burglary." "I am calling 911 right now." That got their attention. Jennifer looked panicked. "Sharon, maybe we should go." "We have every right to be here," Sharon insisted, but she was already backing toward the driveway. I was already on the phone with the emergency dispatcher. "Yes, I need police at 4427 Desert Sage Drive in Scottsdale. There are 3 people who broke into my garage without permission." Sharon, Jennifer, and Douglas Fletcher quickly left, but I stayed on the line with the dispatcher and gave a full statement. 2 Scottsdale police officers arrived about 10 minutes later, and I explained the entire situation. I showed them the correspondence from the HOA, the letters from Marcus, and everything that had happened. Officer David Reynolds, a veteran cop in his 50s, shook his head. "HOA man. They think they are above the law sometimes. Do you want to press charges for trespassing?" "I want documentation of this incident," I said. "I am going to let my attorney decide how to proceed." "Smart move," Officer Reynolds said. He took detailed notes and photographs of my garage, including the fact that some of my inventory boxes had been opened and gone through. "We will file a report. Keep copies of everything." As soon as the police left, I called Marcus. He was absolutely livid. "They did what?" "Frank, this is beyond harassment now. This is actual criminal trespass and possibly attempted theft of trade secrets." "What do we do?" I asked. "We file a lawsuit first thing tomorrow morning," Marcus said. "And we are going to ask for damages, legal fees, and an injunction preventing them from any further contact with you regarding this matter. They have crossed a line." The lawsuit hit the HOA like a bomb. Marcus filed a comprehensive complaint alleging trespassing, harassment, attempted theft of business records, violation of privacy rights, and interference with business operations. We asked for $50,000 in damages plus legal fees and a permanent injunction. Sharon tried to rally the HOA to fight back, but the association's attorney, a guy named Paul Winters, apparently told the board they were in serious trouble. According to Robert Martinez, who called me secretly, Paul had warned that the HOA was facing potential criminal charges on top of the civil lawsuit. A week after we filed the lawsuit, I received a call from Paul Winters himself. "Mr. Patterson, I represent the HOA, but I am calling to see if there is any way we can resolve this matter without protracted litigation. Your clients trespassed on my property and tried to steal my business records," I said. "After being repeatedly told by my attorney that they had no legal right to those records. I understand your anger, and frankly, I advised the board against every step they took," Paul said, sounding exhausted. "Mrs. Whitmore acted against legal advice. I am hoping we can negotiate a settlement that makes you whole without bankrupting the HOA, which would hurt all the homeowners in your community." "What are you proposing?" I asked. "A full apology from the board, a formal acknowledgement that they violated your rights, complete withdrawal of all fines and demands, payment of your legal fees to date, and Mrs. Whitmore's resignation from the board." I told him I would discuss it with Marcus and get back to him. When I called Marcus, he was skeptical. "Frank, we could probably get a lot more if we go to trial, and honestly, these people deserve to be held accountable." "I know," I said, "but I also do not want to spend the next year in litigation. If Sharon resigns and they admit they were wrong, that is worth something, and getting my legal fees paid is important." Marcus thought about it. "Let me negotiate. I think we can get you more than just legal fees. But yes, if you want to settle, we can probably reach an agreement." Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus worked out a settlement. The HOA would pay $25,000 to me personally, in addition to all legal fees, which amounted to about $8,000. Sharon would resign from the board immediately. The HOA would issue a formal letter acknowledging that they had violated my privacy rights and acted illegally. And there would be a permanent injunction preventing the HOA from making any demands regarding my business or its records. The settlement was finalized in mid-September. Sharon resigned in a furious letter that blamed everyone but herself, calling me a troublemaker who does not care about community values. Jennifer also resigned shortly after, apparently too embarrassed by the whole situation to continue. Robert Martinez became the interim board president and immediately sent me a personal apology, but the story did not end there. About a month after the settlement, I got a call from Officer Reynolds. "Mr. Patterson, I wanted to give you a heads up. We have been investigating Mrs. Whitmore further based on your case, and we discovered she has been doing similar things to other people in other neighborhoods." "What do you mean?" I asked. "She has been on multiple HOA boards over the years," Officer Reynolds explained. "And we have found at least 3 other cases where she demanded access to people's homes or private records without authority. In one case, she apparently stole documents from someone's home office during an unauthorized inspection. That victim is pressing charges." "So she is facing criminal charges?" I asked, shocked. "Yes, sir. We arrested her this morning for burglary, trespassing, and theft. The county attorney is taking it very seriously because she abused a position of authority to commit these crimes." I sat down, feeling a strange mix of vindication and disbelief. Sharon Whitmore, the self-appointed guardian of community standards, was actually a criminal. The case against Sharon made local news. It turned out she had a pattern of joining HOA boards, escalating minor issues into major confrontations, and then using her position to harass homeowners. In the case that led to her arrest, she had actually stolen business contracts from a home-based consultant, apparently planning to use them to force the person to sell their house and move out of the neighborhood. The trial was quick. Sharon represented herself after alienating multiple attorneys, and she was convicted on 3 counts of burglary and 2 counts of theft. The judge sentenced her to 2 years in prison, though the sentence was partially suspended, so she would actually serve about 9 months. She was also ordered to pay restitution to her victims and complete community service. For me, life got back to normal. My e-commerce business continued to grow, and I eventually rented a proper warehouse space in Phoenix, moving most of my inventory out of my garage. The new HOA board, led by Robert Martinez, was reasonable and focused on actual community issues like maintaining common areas and organizing neighborhood events, not harassing business owners. About 6 months after everything was resolved, I was having a beer on my back patio when Tom Richardson came over. "Hey Frank, I wanted to thank you." "For what?" I asked. "For standing up to Sharon," he said. "I let her push me around for 3 years over stupid stuff. Watching you fight back inspired a lot of us to stop being afraid of these petty tyrants." We talked for a while about the neighborhood, HOAs in general, and how important it is to know your rights. Tom mentioned that several other communities in Scottsdale had reformed their HOA boards after hearing about the Sharon Whitmore case, implementing better oversight and clearer limits on board authority. The experience taught me several important lessons. First, privacy laws exist for a reason, and they apply even in the face of HOA covenants. Your business records are your property, and no HOA board has the right to demand them without a legitimate legal reason and proper authority. Second, standing up to bullies, even when it is stressful and expensive, is sometimes necessary. If I had just handed over my inventory lists to avoid conflict, Sharon would have continued abusing her power against me and others. Third, most people are reasonable when they understand the legal realities. Robert Martinez, and eventually even Jennifer Carlson, came around once they realized Sharon was leading them into legal liability. I also learned that HOAs, for all their problems, serve a purpose when run correctly. After Robert took over, the neighborhood did become more pleasant. They focused on things that mattered: maintaining the landscaping in common areas, organizing community events, and mediating neighbor disputes fairly. The difference was that Robert understood the limits of HOA authority and respected homeowners' rights. My business thrived. Within a year of the Sharon incident, I had expanded to include a second warehouse and hired 3 employees. The publicity from the lawsuit actually helped, as several news outlets ran stories about the small business owner who stood up to HOA overreach. I got interview requests from business podcasts, and even a segment on a local news show about knowing your rights as a business owner. Marcus and I became good friends through the whole process. He told me that my case became something of a teaching tool in his practice. When clients come to me with HOA problems now, I show them your case as an example of how to handle illegal demands. Stand firm, document everything, and do not let them intimidate you. The legal precedent from my case also had broader implications. Several other homeowners in Arizona cited my case when fighting their own HOA battles, particularly regarding privacy rights and business operations. One woman in Tempe successfully defended her right to run a home-based graphic design business after her HOA tried to shut her down, citing the Patterson v. Desert Sage HOA case as precedent. Looking back now, almost 2 years after Sharon first knocked on my door demanding my inventory list, I feel grateful for how everything turned out. Yes, it was stressful. Yes, it cost time and money, even with the settlement. But I protected my rights, my business, and helped establish an important legal principle. HOAs do not have unlimited power, and privacy laws protect business records from unreasonable demands. The neighborhood is actually a great place to live now. Robert Martinez eventually stepped down as board president, and a retired attorney named Helen Foster took over. She runs the board with a light touch, focusing on genuine community concerns and leaving homeowners alone to live their lives. We have neighborhood barbecues, a community garden, and a real sense of camaraderie that was impossible under Sharon's reign of terror. I still run my e-commerce business, though it has evolved significantly. I now specialize in high-end camping equipment and have partnerships with several major outdoor brands. The business is successful enough that I could move to a bigger house if I wanted, but I like this neighborhood and my neighbors. Plus, after fighting so hard to defend my rights here, I feel a certain attachment to the place. One interesting footnote to the whole story: about a year after Sharon went to prison, I received a letter from her. It was a brief, formal apology that her attorney had clearly drafted. She acknowledged that she had overstepped her authority and violated my rights. The letter was part of her parole conditions, apparently. I never responded, but I kept the letter as a reminder of the whole saga. Jennifer Carlson also reached out to me, months after resigning from the board. She apologized personally for going along with Sharon's demands. I knew it felt wrong, but she was so forceful and seemed so certain that we had the authority, Jennifer told me over coffee at a local Starbucks. I learned a hard lesson about not following leaders who abuse power, even in something as small as an HOA. The experience changed how I approach business and community involvement. I became more active in local business associations, advocating for small business rights and property owner protections. I gave several talks at the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce about navigating HOA issues as a business owner. I even worked with a state representative to propose legislation that would clarify the limits of HOA authority regarding home-based businesses, though the bill is still working its way through committee. My family was also impacted by the whole situation. My brother, who lives in California, had his own HOA problems and called me for advice. I connected him with an attorney in San Diego who specialized in HOA law, and they successfully fought back against unreasonable fines. My parents, who live in Florida, made sure to carefully review HOA covenants before moving into a retirement community, knowing from my experience how important those documents are. The financial settlement helped me expand my business faster than I had planned. That $25,000, combined with the money I saved from having my legal fees paid, allowed me to lease the warehouse space earlier than expected and invest in better inventory management systems. In a weird way, Sharon's harassment ended up benefiting my business in the long run, though I certainly would not recommend that path to success. I also developed a new appreciation for the legal system. Before this experience, I had never dealt with lawsuits or police reports or any of that formal legal machinery. Going through it showed me that while the system is not perfect, it does work when you have the facts on your side and you are willing to fight for your rights. Judge Martha Blackwell, who presided over my civil case before we settled, was fair and thorough. The police took my complaints seriously. The county attorney prosecuted Sharon appropriately. The system worked. The outdoor equipment business continues to grow. I now ship products all over the western United States, and am exploring expansion into international markets. None of that would have been possible if I had let Sharon intimidate me into shutting down or moving away. My inventory, which she was so desperate to examine, now fills 3 warehouse units totaling about 15,000 square feet. I often think about how absurd her demands were in retrospect. She wanted a detailed list of camping equipment stored in my garage, as if that information posed some threat to the neighborhood. The neighborhood itself has become something of a local legend in Scottsdale HOA circles. People call it that neighborhood where the board president got arrested. It serves as a cautionary tale for overzealous board members throughout the area. Several HOA management companies now use my case as a training example for new board members, teaching them the limits of their authority. I have also noticed a change in how neighbors relate to each other. Before the Sharon incident, everyone was kind of isolated, afraid that any little thing would trigger an HOA complaint. Now people are more relaxed and friendly. We actually know each other. We help each other out. Last month, when Tom Richardson's wife had surgery, several neighbors organized meal deliveries and help with their kids. That sense of community never existed under Sharon's authoritarian approach. The business side of things taught me important lessons too. I learned to keep meticulous records, to document every communication, and to stand firm on legal principles even when faced with pressure. Those lessons have served me well beyond the HOA situation. When a supplier tried to back out of a contract last year, I was able to enforce our agreement because I had everything documented. When a customer filed a frivolous complaint, I had the records to prove my company had done everything correctly. Marcus Henderson remains my attorney and has become a trusted advisor for all business matters. His firm now handles all my contracts, leases, and corporate filings. He tells me that my case helped build his reputation as a fierce advocate for small business owners, and his practice has grown significantly since then. We sometimes joke that Sharon Whitmore accidentally gave both of us career boosts, though again, neither of us would recommend that method. The criminal case against Sharon had ripple effects beyond just her conviction. The investigation revealed that Douglas Fletcher, the compliance officer she brought to my garage that day, was not actually licensed or authorized to conduct any kind of official inspections. He was just a guy she knew who liked to intimidate people. He faced his own charges for impersonating an official, though he received probation rather than jail time. Paul Winters, the HOA attorney, left his practice shortly after the case resolved. He told Robert Martinez that he was tired of dealing with unreasonable HOA boards and wanted to focus on other areas of law. The new attorney the HOA hired is much more conservative in advising the board, always erring on the side of respecting homeowner rights rather than pushing boundaries. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had just complied with Sharon's original demand for my inventory list. Would she have been satisfied, or would she have found something else to complain about? Based on what came out during the investigation, I think she would have continued escalating. She was someone who thrived on conflict and control, and giving in would have just invited more demands. The whole experience also affected my perspective on privacy and rights in general. I became much more aware of how easily authorities, even petty ones like HOA boards, can overreach if people do not push back. I vote differently now, paying more attention to candidates' views on property rights and small business protections. I donate to organizations that fight government overreach. I speak up when I see injustice, even in small situations. My e-commerce business now serves as a case study in several business law courses at Arizona State University. Marcus was invited to speak at the law school about the case, and he brought me along. Standing in front of a room full of future attorneys, explaining how I fought back against illegal HOA demands, was surreal but satisfying. Several students asked thoughtful questions about balancing community standards with individual rights, which led to a good discussion. The inventory that Sharon was so obsessed with seeing has evolved significantly. I now carry premium brands like Patagonia, the North Face, and Arc'teryx, alongside smaller specialized manufacturers. My business model focuses on quality over quantity, and my customer reviews consistently praise the careful curation of products. Ironically, if Sharon had just left me alone, she never would have known or cared what I was doing. Her harassment brought attention to something that was completely benign. I have also learned to spot the warning signs of problematic HOA boards before buying property. When friends or business associates tell me they are looking at homes in HOA communities, I give them a checklist of red flags to watch for. Boards that meet too frequently, excessive fine schedules, vague or overly broad covenants, and board members who have served for many consecutive years without turnover. These indicators often suggest a board that has lost perspective on its proper role. The settlement money and legal fees the HOA paid came from the association's reserves, which meant that homeowner dues had to be increased slightly the following year to rebuild the fund. A few residents grumbled about that, but most understood that Sharon's illegal actions had caused the problem, not my decision to defend my rights. The annual HOA meeting that year was apparently quite contentious, with many homeowners expressing anger at Sharon and the previous board for creating the mess. My relationship with Robert Martinez evolved into a genuine friendship. He is a retired software engineer who understands business and technology, and we have had many interesting conversations about entrepreneurship and innovation. He told me that serving as board president after Sharon was both challenging and rewarding. I had to rebuild trust between the board and the homeowners, he said. Your case made everyone realize how badly things had gone wrong. The case also attracted attention from a documentary filmmaker who was making a film about HOA abuses across America. She interviewed me for about 2 hours, and my case was featured prominently in the final documentary, which aired on a streaming service last year. The exposure led to even more business inquiries and media requests. I had to start referring most media inquiries to Marcus, because I simply did not have time to do all the interviews people wanted. Looking at the big picture, the whole saga took about 18 months from Sharon's first demand to her criminal conviction. During that time, my business grew by over 300%. I moved from my garage to professional warehouse space. I hired staff, and I became an advocate for property rights and privacy protections. If someone had told me when I moved to Scottsdale that an HOA dispute would lead to all of that, I would never have believed them. The fundamental legal principle that emerged from my case is now cited in HOA law guides and property rights publications. Business records are protected by privacy laws, and HOAs cannot demand access to them without legitimate authority and proper legal process. That principle protects thousands of home-based business owners across Arizona and potentially serves as persuasive precedent in other states. Sharon Whitmore served her 9 months in prison and was released about 6 months ago. I have not seen her, and I hope I never do. According to the neighborhood grapevine, she moved to Nevada after her release. I genuinely hope she learned something from the experience and is not causing problems for people in her new community, but I have my doubts. People like Sharon rarely change. The outdoor equipment market has its challenges, especially with supply chain issues over the past few years, but my business has remained profitable and continues growing. I attribute much of that success to the discipline and documentation habits I developed during the HOA fight. When you have been through a legal battle, keeping good records becomes second nature, and that serves you well in all aspects of business. I still live in the same house in Scottsdale. My garage now holds 2 cars and some personal items, with all business inventory properly stored in commercial warehouse space. The irony is not lost on me that if I had simply rented warehouse space from the beginning, Sharon might never have targeted me. But then I would not have established an important legal precedent, would not have met Marcus, and would not have learned so many valuable lessons. The story ends as it should, with everything resolved legally and properly. Sharon faced consequences for her criminal actions. The HOA reformed its practices. My business thrived, and I learned that standing up for your rights, while stressful and difficult, is always worth it in the end. Privacy laws exist to protect people like me from unreasonable intrusions by authorities who exceed their legitimate powers. The fact that those laws held up under pressure gives me faith in the system and hope for other small business owners who might face similar situations.